My daughter's voice came through the phone, cold and piercing. "You're banned from my wedding, old man, because you don't fit into our social class." 35 years of teaching history, and I'd never seen anyone rewrite the past quite this quickly. As fast as my daughter could rewrite our relationship, one phone call on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:15 p.m., and 29 years of raising her alone suddenly became an embarrassment to the Sterling family reputation. Emily had been dating Harrison Sterling for 18 months. Old money families, she kept telling me, country club people, the kind whose summers were spent in the Hamptons and winters in Palm Beach, the kind who, according to my daughter, couldn't have a retired high school teacher walking her down the aisle. "Dad, you have to understand," she'd said during that call, her voice carrying that new, polished accent she'd picked up somewhere between her financial advisor job and Harrison's social circle. "The Sterlings have a certain standard, a certain image to maintain." I'd raised Emily by myself since she was 14 after her mother, Sarah, died from cancer. I worked 2 jobs some years to keep her in private school, sold my late wife's jewelry to pay for her college tuition. Never once did she complain about our modest 3-bedroom house on Maple Street, or the fact that I drove a 12-year-old Toyota, or that our idea of fine dining was the local Italian chain on special occasions. But apparently, love has an expiration date when social status comes calling. "I'm not asking you to understand," Emily continued. "I'm telling you how it's going to be. Harrison's family is hosting the reception at their country club, members only. You wouldn't fit in." This story has more twists than a semester of European history, and every single one of them is documented. I set the phone down that afternoon, thinking I'd lost my daughter to a world I'd never wanted to join anyway. I was wrong about one thing, though. I hadn't lost her. I'd simply discovered who she'd become when she thought nobody was keeping score. If you've ever wondered whether you're too good to your kids, subscribe to this channel and let me know in the comments where you're listening to this story, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and the price of unconditional love. And then I opened the letter from City Central Bank. The envelope came 3 days after Emily's phone call, addressed to me but regarding a mortgage on my house, the house my wife Sarah and I had bought 28 years ago, the house I'd owned free and clear for the past 6 years. According to City Central Bank, someone had taken out a $160,000 mortgage on my property, someone with my name, my social security number, and my signature. But let me back up, because to understand how we got here, you need to know what Emily used to be like before she discovered the Sterling family and their particular brand of social climbing. When Sarah died, Emily was a freshman at State University, majoring in business with dreams of becoming a financial advisor. Smart kid, Dean's List every semester. Used to call me every Sunday night, not because she needed money, but because she wanted to tell me about her classes, her friends, her plans for the future. She'd come home for holidays and spend hours in the kitchen trying to recreate her mother's recipes. She never quite got them right, but she kept trying. We'd sit at the same dining room table where I had helped her with homework for years, and she'd tell me about her internships, her job interviews, her first apartment. When she graduated, I drove the 6 hours to attend her ceremony. She introduced me to her friends as my dad, the history teacher who knows everything about everything. She hugged me so tight that day, I thought she might break my ribs. "Dad," she'd whispered in my ear, "thank you for never giving up on me." That was 3 years ago. The Emily who called me on that Tuesday was someone else entirely, someone who'd learned to speak in carefully modulated tones about social expectations and appropriate boundaries, someone who'd started referring to our house as quaint and my car as vintage charm. The change had been gradual. She'd moved into a downtown apartment, started shopping at stores I couldn't pronounce, and developed a taste for wine that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. At first, I was proud. My daughter was successful, confident, making her way in the world. Then she started bringing Harrison around. Harrison Sterling was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, spoken in that particular way rich people speak, where every word sounds like it's been pressed and starched. He wore watches that cost more than my annual property taxes and drove a luxury sedan that he parked in my driveway like he was doing the neighborhood a favor. He was polite enough in the way people are polite to service workers, called me sir and shook my hand with just the right amount of pressure, asked about my teaching career like it was a hobby I'd eventually outgrow. But I watched him during those visits, watched how his eyes moved around our living room, cataloging and dismissing, watched how he steered Emily away from family photos, from stories about her mother, from anything that reminded her where she came from. Emily started visiting less. Phone calls became text messages. Sunday dinners became, "I'm too busy, Dad. Harrison and I have plans." The last time we'd had a real conversation was 6 months ago, when she'd asked about the value of the house, said she was curious about real estate in the area. I told her the tax assessment had it at $385,000, which seemed about right for the neighborhood. "That's good to know," she said, making a note in that leather planner she carried everywhere for estate planning purposes. Estate planning? Like I was already dead and buried. I should have seen the signs. I remembered teaching her about the Trojan horse years ago, how something beautiful can hide destruction inside. I just never thought that history lesson would apply to the man she planned to marry, or that she would be the one opening the gates. I should have wondered why she suddenly cared about property assessments and mortgage rates and whether I'd ever considered leveraging my equity for better returns. But she was my daughter, the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap during movies, the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak, the college graduate who'd promised to take care of me when I got old. Trust isn't something you turn off with a switch, even when you should. The bank letter lay open on my kitchen table next to the morning coffee that had gone cold while I read it 3 times. Someone had forged my signature so perfectly that even I had to look twice. Someone had provided my social security number, my employment history, my financial statements. Someone who had access to all of that information because I'd trusted them with it. I picked up my phone and dialed Emily's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Emily Bennett. I'm probably at the gym or planning my wedding. Leave a message and I'll get back to you when I can." Emily Bennett. Not Emily Bennett Sterling yet, but close enough that she'd already started practicing. But I hadn't heard the worst part yet. The mortgage documents arrived by courier the next morning, requiring my signature to finalize the loan process. 300 pages of legal text that I read word by word because that's what history teachers do. We read the fine print. The loan was dated March 15th, 2024, 3 months ago. The signature on page 47 looked exactly like mine, down to the way I loop my Y's and cross my T's. But I'd never seen these papers before in my life. I called City Central Bank and asked to speak with the loan officer. "Mr. Bennett," said a woman named Joyce Miller, "I have your file right here. You came in personally to complete the application. I remember because you brought your daughter Emily to co-sign as a character reference." My stomach dropped. What did this person look like? "Well, you, Mr. Bennett. Same height, same general build. Your daughter vouched for your identity, and you had all the proper documentation: driver's license, social security card, recent utility bills, and the money. Where did the $160,000 go?" Papers rustled on her end. "Wire transferred to Sterling Holdings, LLC. Your daughter said it was for a real estate investment, family business." Sterling Holdings. Harrison's family company. I hung up the phone and sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes staring at the mortgage papers. Emily had been there, had vouched for someone impersonating me, and had helped them steal equity from the house her mother and I had worked 30 years to pay off. My phone rang. Emily's ringtone. "Dad, hi," she said, sounding breathless. "I got your voicemail. What's so urgent?" "I need to ask you about something, honey. Did you go to City Central Bank with someone about 3 months ago?" Silence. Then, "Why would you ask me that?" "Because someone took out a mortgage on my house and the bank says you were there." "Dad, you're being paranoid. Maybe you forgot. You're getting older and sometimes—" "Emily," I kept my voice level. "Someone forged my signature. Someone who knew my social security number, my employment history, my financial information. Someone who had you there to vouch for them. I don't know what you're talking about. And the loan officer remembered you, honey. Joyce Miller. She said you told her it was for a family real estate investment. Another pause, longer this time. Dad, if someone took out a loan in your name, you should call the police. Report identity theft. These things happen all the time to elderly people. Elderly people. Like I was some confused old man who couldn't remember signing papers. The money went to Sterling Holdings LLC. I don't know anything about that. Emily, are you in trouble? Did someone force you to do this? Because if you're being threatened or coerced, nobody forced me to do anything. The words came out too fast, too sharp, and I resent the implication that I would steal from my own father. Then help me understand what happened. What happened is that you are paranoid and suspicious and apparently willing to believe that your only daughter is some kind of criminal. Maybe that's why the Sterlings don't think you're appropriate wedding material. The line went dead. I called back immediately. Voicemail. I tried texting. Emily, we need to talk about this. I love you, but I need answers. No response. I tried calling Harrison directly. His voicemail was crisp and professional. You've reached Harrison Sterling at Sterling Holdings. Leave your name and number and I'll return your call during business hours. It was 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Business hours. I drove to the address listed on the mortgage documents. Sterling Holdings LLC was registered to an office building downtown, 4th floor. The elevator smelled like expensive cologne and fear-based ambition. The receptionist was young, blonde, and spoke in the same carefully modulated tones Emily had been practicing. I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling is in meetings all afternoon. Can I take a message? Tell him Arthur Bennett is here about the $160,000 mortgage. She picked up her phone immediately. 2 minutes later, Harrison emerged from an office down the hall, straightening his tie like he was preparing for battle. Mr. Bennett, what a surprise. We need to talk. Of course, my office. He led me into a room with windows overlooking the city, mahogany furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary, and family photos showing 4 generations of Sterling success. Now then, Harrison said, settling behind his desk like a judge preparing to pass sentence. What seems to be the problem? That's when Emily appeared in the doorway. Her name was on the papers. Her signature was next to mine. Emily stood in Harrison's doorway, wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly pension, her face pale but defiant. She looked like her mother in that moment, same stubborn set to her jaw, same way of lifting her chin when she'd been caught in something she couldn't explain away. Dodd, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same question, especially since you told me you didn't know anything about Sterling Holdings. Harrison gestured to a chair across from Emily. Please, Mr. Bennett, let's discuss this like civilized people. Let's discuss how your company received $160,000 from a mortgage taken out without my knowledge or consent. That's a serious accusation, Harrison said smoothly. I hope you have documentation to support such a claim. I placed the mortgage papers on his desk. Page 47, my signature, or someone's very good imitation of it. Emily shifted in her chair. Dad, identity theft happens. You should be grateful we're willing to help sort this out instead of accusing us of... The bank officer remembered you, Emily. Joyce Miller. She said you vouched for whoever was impersonating me. I've never heard that name in my life. Really? Because she described you perfectly, right down to that leather planner you carry everywhere. Harrison leaned forward. Mr. Bennett, I understand you're upset, but you're making accusations against my fiancé that could be considered defamatory. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. Emily has an impeccable reputation in the financial services industry. Any suggestion that she would participate in mortgage fraud could damage her career permanently. I looked at my daughter. Is that what this is about? Your reputation? It's about the fact that you're embarrassing yourself, Dad, and embarrassing me. Harrison's family have standards, Dad. They can't be associated with people who make wild accusations without proof. I have proof. I have bank records, loan documents, and witness testimony. Witness testimony from someone you've never met, someone who could easily be mistaken about what she saw or heard. Joyce Miller isn't mistaken. She has a written record of Emily's involvement. Emily's face flushed. Fine, yes, I was there, but not for what you think. The room went quiet except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 4 floors below. I went to the bank to help someone who said they were helping you with financial planning. They had all your information, all your documents. They said you'd asked them to handle the mortgage because you were embarrassed about needing money. Embarrassed about needing money for what? For medical expenses. They said you'd been diagnosed with something but didn't want to worry me. My chest tightened. And you believe that? You haven't exactly been forthcoming about your health, Dad. You're 62. You live alone. You don't take care of yourself properly. It made sense that you might need financial help but be too proud to ask. So you helped a stranger take out a mortgage on my house. I helped what I thought was your financial advisor arrange a loan that you needed. Her voice rose. I was trying to protect you from embarrassment by vouching for someone you'd never met, by being a good daughter to a father who's too stubborn to accept help when he needs it. Harrison cleared his throat. Clearly, there's been a misunderstanding. These financial predators target elderly homeowners all the time. They research their victims, gather personal information, and then use family members as unwitting accomplices. So Emily was duped, obviously. The question is, what do we do now? I looked between them. Harrison, calm and professional, playing the role of concerned son-in-law. Emily, defensive, but beginning to show cracks in her story. We start with the truth, I said. Emily, who approached you about this loan? I don't remember his name. You don't remember the name of someone who convinced you to help him impersonate your father? It was months ago, Dad, and it wasn't like that. He said he was working with you, that you'd asked him to handle the paperwork because you were uncomfortable dealing with banks. Describe him. Emily glanced at Harrison. I don't see how that's relevant now. Describe him, Emily. He was average height, middle-aged, professional-looking.
What did he sound like? I don't understand. His voice, his accent, did he sound local, from the South, from New York? I really don't remember. You don't remember anything about a man who convinced you to help him steal $160,000 from your father? He didn't steal anything. Emily's composure finally cracked. The money was for a legitimate business investment. Harrison's company needed capital for a development project, and you were supposed to be a silent partner. The truth was finally coming out. A development project, I repeated. A shopping center in the suburbs, low risk, high return. You would have doubled your money within 18 months. Without my knowledge or consent? Because we knew you'd say no. Emily stood up, her hands shaking. Because you're so conservative and old-fashioned that you'd rather keep your money in a savings account earning nothing than take a smart risk that could secure your retirement. So you forged my signature to secure my retirement? We protected your interests, Harrison said quietly. Sometimes families have to make difficult decisions for the greater good. I stood up slowly, gathering the mortgage documents. I need to think about this. Dad, wait, Emily said. Don't do anything rash. We can fix this. We can make it right. Can you? Yes, of course we can. We're family. Family? Like that word still meant something to her. I walked to the door and turned back. Emily, I need you to know something. That shopping center development, I looked it up on the way here. Her face went white. There is no shopping center development. And that's when I discovered there were 3 ways to fight this: civil court, criminal charges, or make the problem disappear entirely. I left Harrison's office and drove straight to the law offices of Thorne and Associates. Robert Thorne had handled Sarah's estate 8 years ago, and I trusted him to tell me the truth, even when I didn't want to hear it. Arthur, Robert said, gesturing to a chair in his office. "Good to see you again, though I'm guessing this isn't a social call." I laid out the entire story: the mortgage, the bank visit, Emily's involvement, Harrison's claims about a development project. Robert listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "Show me the documents," he said. I handed him the mortgage papers. He examined the signature page with a magnifying glass, then scanned several other pages. "This is sophisticated," he said. "Whoever did this had access to multiple pieces of your personal information: bank statements, tax returns, employment records." Emily had access to all of that. Family members often do. The question is whether she acted willingly or was manipulated. "But what's your professional opinion?" Robert set the papers down carefully. "Honestly, this has all the hallmarks of a planned operation: the timing, the documentation, the use of your daughter as a character witness. It's too coordinated to be random fraud." "So what are my options?" "Three paths. First, civil litigation. Sue Emily and Harrison for the money. Long, expensive, uncertain outcome, and it destroys your relationship with your daughter permanently. And the second, criminal charges, reported to the police as identity theft and fraud. They investigate, possibly arrest Emily and Harrison, and you get your money back after they're convicted. Also destroys your relationship with Emily, but at least justice gets served." "The third option?" Robert smiled grimly. "Make the asset disappear before they can steal any more of it." "Explain." "Your house is currently worth about $385,000, right? They borrowed $160,000 against it, which means there's still $225,000 in equity they could potentially access with another fraudulent mortgage." "They're planning another mortgage." "I'd bet money on it. The first loan was probably a test run. See if you'd notice, see if they could get away with it. When you didn't immediately raise hell, they probably figured they had good time for round two." My stomach turned. "How would I make the asset disappear?" "Charitable remainder trust. You transfer the house to a qualified nonprofit organization in exchange for a guaranteed income stream for the rest of your life. The house no longer belongs to you, so it can't be mortgaged. The charity eventually owns it outright, but you get to live there as long as you want and receive monthly payments." "Is that legal?" "Completely. It's a standard estate planning tool. Rich people use them all the time to avoid taxes and protect assets from creditors." "How long would it take?" "If you're serious about this, I can have the paperwork ready by tomorrow afternoon. The transfer takes effect immediately upon signing." I thought about Emily's face in Harrison's office, the way she'd said, "We protected your interests," like she actually believed it. "There's something else," I said. "I want to find out exactly what Sterling Holdings does with their money." "Financial investigation."
Everything you can legally discover: tax liens, bankruptcy filings, outstanding debts, business relationships. I want to know who I'm really dealing with. Robert picked up his phone. "Joyce Miller, right? The banker who remembered Emily?" "That's right. I'll call her this afternoon. As your attorney, I can request copies of all documentation related to the loan. Bank cameras, signature cards, witness statements, and then we'll know exactly how deep this goes." Robert walked me to the door. "Arthur, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Once you transfer the house to a charity, there's no going back. Emily won't inherit anything." "Arthur, let me tell you something I learned in 35 years of teaching. When students cheat on a test, you don't give them a makeup exam. You give them the consequences they earned." "Fair enough. I'll call you tomorrow with the trust paperwork." I drove home and spent the rest of the afternoon going through my files. Bank statements, tax returns, insurance policies, all the documents someone would need to forge a mortgage application. Everything was exactly where I had left it, in the filing cabinet in my home office, except for one thing. My birth certificate was missing. I'd kept it in a manila envelope with Sarah's birth certificate and our marriage license. Sarah's documents were still there. Mine was gone. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Bennett, this is Joyce Miller from City Central Bank. Your attorney called and asked me to review our records from your March mortgage application." "What did you find?" "Well, sir, that's the strange thing.
I pulled up our security footage from that day, and I have to tell you, the man who came in with your daughter didn't look much like you. What do you mean? He was about the same height and general build, but much younger, maybe 40, 45, very well dressed, very confident. Your daughter called him Dad throughout the meeting, but frankly, he could have been her brother. Did you save the footage? Yes, sir. Your attorney requested copies. I'm sending them over this afternoon. I hung up and immediately called Emily. Voicemail again. This time I left a message. Emily, it's Dad. I know about the security footage from the bank. I know the man you called Dad wasn't me. I know about the missing birth certificate. We need to talk, and we need to talk now. Call me back within an hour or I'm calling the police. 58 minutes later, my phone rang. Dad? Emily's voice was small, scared. Who was he, Emily? I can't tell you. Why not? Because they'll destroy me if I do. They're already destroying you, honey. This path we're on, it doesn't end well for anyone. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Then explain it to me. Silence on her end. I could hear traffic, voices, the sound of a busy street. Emily, where are you? I'm at the bank with Harrison. We're trying to figure out how to fix this. What bank? City Central. We're meeting with Joyce Miller. My blood went cold. Emily, listen to me very carefully. Do not sign anything. Do not authorize anything. Do not give them any more information. Dad, you're scaring me. Good, you should be scared because what you've done so far is fraud. But if you help them take out another mortgage, it becomes a federal crime. The line went dead. I grabbed my keys and drove to City Central as fast as I legally could, but they weren't trying to take out another mortgage. They were trying to steal the Sterling family reputation, and they needed my house as collateral for a much bigger scam. I reached City Central Bank just as Emily and Harrison were coming out of the building. Emily looked like she'd been crying. Harrison looked like he'd been caught. Dad, thank God you're here, Emily said, rushing toward me. There's been a terrible mistake. The only mistake was trusting you. Harrison stepped between us. Mr. Bennett, I understand you're upset, but there's no need for a public scene. Public scene? I looked around at the busy downtown sidewalk, at the people walking past us toward their normal, honest lives. You're worried about a scene? I'm worried about Emily's reputation. Her reputation? Harrison, your family owes $890,000 in federal tax liens. The color drained from his face. That's right. I spent this morning with my attorney doing research. The Sterling family fortune, it's a lie. Your father's company has been operating at a loss for 3 years. Your mother's country club membership was canceled for non-payment. The Hampton house was foreclosed on last year.
Emily looked between us. That's not true. You're making it up. Joyce Miller confirmed it, I said. Your boyfriend's family is broke, Emily. They needed my house as collateral for a loan to keep their business afloat. That's not what Harrison told me. Harrison's jaw tightened. Mr. Bennett, you're obviously confused about. I'm confused about why my daughter would help strangers steal my house. I'm confused about why she would lie to me, to the bank, to herself. But I'm not confused about you, Harrison. You're a con artist. Dad, stop, Emily said. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? Emily, I saw the bank security footage. Her face went white. That's right. The man you called Dad during your little performance at City Central, he was about 20 years younger than me. Very well dressed, very confident, very good at forging signatures. I don't know what you're talking about. Joyce Miller described him perfectly. About 45 years old, expensive suit, spoke with a slight southern accent. Sound familiar? Harrison started walking toward a luxury sedan parked at the curb. Emily relieving. No, I said, we're not done here. Actually, we are. Harrison opened the passenger door. Emily, get in the car. Emily, I said, do you know who that man was? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I thought he was helping us. Who is us? Harrison and me.
He said we needed capital to start our married life together. He said you'd never approve of Harrison because of class differences, but that you'd want to help me if you understood the situation. So you helped him impersonate me? I helped someone I thought was your financial advisor arrange a loan that you supposedly needed, but were too embarrassed to apply for yourself. Emily, think about what you just said. A stranger convinced you that your father was secretly in financial trouble, secretly needed money, but was too proud to ask his own daughter for help. It made sense at the time. It made sense because you wanted it to make sense, because it gave you permission to do something you knew was wrong. Harrison honked the horn. Emily, now who was he? I asked again. Emily wiped her eyes. His name is Julian Sterling, Harrison's uncle. He handles family investments. And where's Julian now? I don't know.
When was the last time you saw him?
Yesterday.
He came to my apartment and said there had been complications, said you discovered the loan and were threatening legal action. What did he tell you to do? Nothing. He said he'd handle it. He said Harrison and I should just focus on the wedding. I looked at Harrison, still sitting in his car with the engine running. Harrison, turn off the car and get out. I don't take orders from you. You will when the FBI starts investigating your uncle's mortgage fraud operation. Harrison's face went ashen. He turned off the engine and stepped onto the sidewalk. What mortgage fraud operation? The one your fiance's family has been running for the past 2 years, I said, targeting elderly homeowners with adult children who can be manipulated into vouching for imposters. That's absurd, Harrison said. Is it? How many other families has Julian approached? How many other daughters has he convinced to help him steal their father's houses? Emily looked at Harrison. Is that true? Of course not. Your father is paranoid and delusional. Then why are you sweating? Harrison was indeed sweating, despite the cool October afternoon. Emily, I said gently, I need you to tell me everything Julian told you about this loan, every detail, every conversation, every promise he made. Dad, I can't. If I tell you and you go to the police, what happens? If you tell me the truth? Julian said. She stopped, glanced at Harrison, then continued in a whisper. Julian said if there were ever any problems, if anyone ever investigated the loan, I would go to jail for fraud because I was the one who vouched for the imposter. And you believed that? He had documentation, legal papers showing that I was listed as a co-conspirator. He said my signature on the witness forms made me legally responsible for any fraud that occurred. Emily, that's not how the law works. How would I know how the law works? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a criminal. I was just trying to help my father and my fiancé. Harrison cleared his throat. Gentlemen, perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. No, we're going to finish it right here, right now. I turned back to Emily. Honey, Julian lied to you about the law, about my finances, about everything. But Harrison knew that. Harrison wouldn't lie to me. Harrison's been lying to you since the day you met him. The country club membership, fake. The Hampton house, foreclosed. The family fortune, gone. You're wrong, Emily said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then ask him about the wedding venue. Harrison's face went completely white. What about the wedding venue? Emily asked. I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot. Elite Manor canceled your reservation yesterday. Insufficient funds. The $25,000 deposit you thought came from Harrison's family, that was stolen from my house. Emily turned to Harrison with tears streaming down her face. Is that true? Harrison didn't answer. Harrison, she said, is that true? The situation is more complicated than your father understands. Is that true? Yes. And then Emily said something that couldn't be taken back. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. Emily's face was streaked with tears, her hands shaking as she reached for Harrison's arm. Harrison stepped back like she'd struck him. What did you say? He asked. I'm pregnant, Harrison. 8 weeks. I found out 2 days ago.
You didn't tell me. I was going to tell you after the wedding. I thought you'd be happy. Harrison looked like he might vomit. We can't have a baby right now, Emily, not with everything that's happening. Everything that's happening? You mean your family's bankruptcy or the fact that you stole my father's house? I didn't steal anything. Julian handled the business arrangements. Business arrangements? Emily repeated. Is that what you call fraud now? I wanted to reach for my daughter, to comfort her the way I had when she was small and the world seemed too big and scary. But she wasn't small anymore, and the scariest thing in her world was the man she'd planned to marry. Emily, I said quietly, we need to talk alone. No, Harrison said. Anything you have to say to Emily, you can say in front of me. I don't think so. I'm her fiancé. I'm about to be her husband. I have a right. You don't have any rights, I said. Not to my daughter, not to my house, not to my family. Emily wiped her eyes. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about everything, but I can't lose Harrison. Not now. Honey, Harrison is the one who got you into this mess. Harrison loves me. Harrison used you. There's a difference. Harrison straightened his tie, trying to regain his composure. Mr. Bennett, I understand you're emotional right now, but Emily and I are planning a life together. A baby complicates things, certainly, but it doesn't change our commitment to each other. Doesn't it? I looked at him carefully, because you look like a man who just heard the worst news of his life. You look like a man whose father-in-law is trying to destroy his relationship with unfounded accusations. The accusations aren't unfounded. I have documentation. You have paperwork that you've misinterpreted. I have security footage of your Uncle Julian impersonating me at the bank. That proves nothing. It proves your family is running a mortgage fraud scheme. It proves Julian made a mistake in how he handled your loan application. Emily looked between us. Stop, both of you, just stop. She turned to Harrison. Tell me the truth right now. Is my father right about your family's finances? Harrison hesitated just long enough for the truth to show on his face. The Sterling family has experienced some temporary setbacks, he said finally, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. Temporary setbacks? Harrison, my father says you owe almost $1 million in taxes. The tax situation is complicated. It's being resolved through proper legal channels. By stealing from elderly homeowners, by securing bridge financing until our investments mature. Bridge financing? Emily repeated. Is that what you call theft? I call it business. Emily stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled off her engagement ring and held it out. Keep it, she said. Harrison's mask finally slipped. Emily, don't be ridiculous. You're emotional right now because of the pregnancy hormones. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. You need me. You're going to be a single mother with a criminal record for mortgage fraud. Who else is going to take care of you? That was the wrong thing to say. Criminal record? Emily's voice was ice. Julian explained it to you. You vouched for an imposter at the bank. That makes you an accessory to fraud. Without my family's legal protection, you'll go to prison. And with your family's legal protection, the charges disappear? Julian knows how to handle these situations. By making more people complicit, by protecting the people he cares about. Emily, Dad, is that true about the criminal charges? Honey, we'll figure that out, but right now you need to focus on keeping yourself and the baby safe. The baby, Harrison said with disgust. Perfect timing, Emily, really perfect timing. Excuse me, do you have any idea what this does to our timeline? The wedding, the financial arrangements, the family reputation. A pregnant bride doesn't exactly fit the image we've been cultivating. The image you've been cultivating, the image we agreed on, the image that was going to set us up for life. Emily laughed, but there was no humor in it. Set us up for life, Harrison? You're broke. Your family is broke. There is no life to set up. There would have been if your father hadn't interfered. My father interfered by discovering that you stole my house. Your father interfered by being paranoid and ungrateful instead of trusting your daughter's judgment. I stepped closer to Harrison. What was the plan exactly? Mortgage my house for $160,000? Use Emily to legitimize the fraud? Then what? Take out another mortgage for the remaining equity? Harrison didn't answer. That's exactly what you were planning, isn't it? String this out until you'd stolen every penny of equity, then disappear. The loans would have been repaid. With what money? With profits from our investments. What investments? Harrison, your family doesn't have any money to invest. We have deals in development, projects that are about to pay off. Name one. I don't have to justify our business model to you. You do if you want to marry my daughter. I don't need your permission to marry Emily. No, but she needs to understand who she's marrying. Emily pulled out her phone. I'm calling Julian. Emily, don't, Harrison said quickly. Why not? If everything you've told me's true, Julian can explain it himself. Julian's traveling on business. What kind of business? Family business. Julian dialed a number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again, same result. His voicemail box is full, she said. Harrison's phone buzzed. He checked the message and his face went pale. What? Emily asked. Nothing, just work stuff. Show me. Emily. Show me the message, Harrison. He handed her his phone reluctantly. Emily read it aloud. Airport security called. Julian never made his flight. Car found abandoned at long-term parking. Call me immediately, Mom. We all stood there in silence as the implications sank in. Julian Sterling had disappeared with my $160,000, leaving Emily holding the bag for mortgage fraud charges. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I was about to do to make sure she never had to see Harrison again. Emily, give me your car keys, I said. Why? Because you're not driving anywhere with Harrison. Not today, not ever. Dad, you can't. I can and I will. I held out my hand. Keys. Emily hesitated, then dropped them into my palm. Harrison, I said, you're going to walk to your car, drive home, and stay there until my attorney contacts you. You can't tell me what to do. I just did. Harrison looked at Emily. This is insane. You're going to let your father control your life like you're 16 years old? I'm going to let my father protect me from people who want to destroy my life. I don't want to destroy your life. I want to marry you. Why? Because you love me or because you need me to keep vouching for your uncle's fraud schemes? Harrison didn't answer. That's what I thought, Emily said. I waited until Harrison's luxury sedan disappeared around the corner, then turned to my daughter. Emily, we need to go somewhere safe to talk, somewhere private. Dad, I'm scared. I know, honey, but we're going to fix this. How? Julian's gone. The money's gone. I helped someone impersonate you at a bank. How do we fix that? We start by making sure you can't be charged with anything. I drove Emily to Robert Thorne's office. She sat in the passenger seat of my Camry, staring out the window like she was seeing the world for the first time. Dad, as we pulled into the parking garage, I need you to know something. What's that? I never wanted to hurt you. When Julian explained the situation, when he said you needed money but were too proud to ask for help, it seems like the perfect solution. I could help you without embarrassing you. Honey, why didn't you just call me and ask? Because... She stopped, wiped her eyes. Because I was ashamed. Of what? Of how I'd been treating you. Of the things I'd said about you to Harrison and his family. About how I'd let them convince me that you weren't good enough for their social circle. Author, I let them make me ashamed of my own father, the man who raised me alone, who worked 2 jobs to put me through school, who never once made me feel like I was a burden. We sat in the parking garage in silence for a moment. When Julian approached me, Emily continued, I thought it was a sign, a way to prove that I was still a good daughter, that I still cared about you, even if I hadn't been showing it. How did Julian know to approach you? Harrison introduced us at a family dinner. Julian said he specialized in helping families with complex financial situations. He was very convincing, very professional. And Harrison knew what Julian was doing? I don't know, maybe. I thought Harrison loved me, but now... She shrugged. Now I don't know what to think about anything. Robert Thorne met us in his office with a stack of documents. "Arthur, I have good news," he said. "The charitable remainder trust paperwork is ready. You sign here, here, and here. Your house legally belongs to St. Vincent's Foundation as of today." What does that mean for Emily? It means she can't be charged with conspiracy to defraud you of property you no longer own. The mortgage becomes null and void because the collateral no longer exists in your name. What about the money that's already gone? That's between Julian and the bank. Emily's involvement becomes witness testimony instead of criminal conspiracy. I signed the documents while Emily watched. "Dad, are you sure about this?" she asked. "You're giving away your house." "I'm protecting my daughter," I said. "The house was just a building. You're my family." Robert notarized the signatures and made copies. "This transfer is effective immediately. As of 4:47 p.m. today, Arthur Bennett no longer owns the property at 1247 Maple Street." "What happens to me?" Emily asked. "You cooperate with the FBI investigation into Julian's fraud scheme. You tell them everything you know about Harrison's family, about the mortgage application, about any other victims Julian might have mentioned, and then you start over. Clean slate." Emily nodded, then looked at me. "Dad, what about the baby?" "What about the baby?" "Harrison was right about one thing. I'm going to be a single mother with no money and a lot of legal problems." "No," I said. "You're going to be a single mother with a father who loves you and a grandfather who's been waiting his whole life to spoil his grandchild." Robert cleared his throat. "Actually, there's one more thing. The trust includes a provision for educational expenses for your descendants. College fund, basically." "How much?" Emily asked. "Full ride to any state university, plus graduate school if needed." "Dad, you didn't have to." "Yes, I did, because that's what fathers do." But Emily didn't know about the phone call I'd made that morning, the call that was going to end Harrison's scams permanently. My phone rang at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. "Special Agent Monica Davies, FBI Financial Crimes Division. Mr. Bennett, we have Julian Sterling in custody. He was attempting to board a flight to the Cayman Islands with $340,000 in cash and multiple fraudulent identities." $340,000? I thought he only stole $160,000 from my house. "Your house was one of 7 properties he targeted in the past 18 months. We've been tracking his operation since March." "And you didn't warn anyone?" "We needed to catch him in the act with enough evidence to ensure conviction. Your daughter's testimony was the final piece we needed." I sat up in bed. "My daughter's testimony?" "The recording you made of yesterday's conversation with Harrison Sterling provided probable cause for search warrants. We found Julian's entire operation documented on his laptop." "The recording?" "I'd called Agent Davies before meeting Emily at Roberts, and she'd instructed me to keep my phone's voice recorder running during any conversations with Harrison or Julian." "What did you find?" "Names, addresses, and financial records for 43 elderly homeowners across 3 states, mortgage fraud totaling $2.3 million, and something else that's going to interest you." "What's that?" "Harrison Sterling isn't Julian's nephew. He's Julian's partner, has been for 3 years." My stomach dropped. "Emily doesn't know." "She's about to. We need her to come in this morning for a formal debriefing. Can you bring her to the federal building at 9 a.m.? "Agent Davies, my daughter is pregnant. She's been through hell. How much more do you need from her?" "Mr. Bennett, your daughter is a victim here, not a suspect. But Harrison is still out there, and we believe he's planning to flee the country. We need Emily's help to find him." I hung up and immediately called Emily. "Dad?" Her voice was thick with sleep. "Honey, we need to talk. Can you come over here?" "What time is it?" "Early, but it's important." An hour later, Emily sat at my kitchen table wearing the same clothes from yesterday and looking like she hadn't slept. "The FBI caught Julian." Relief flooded her face. "Thank God. Does that mean this is over? Not quite. They need you to come in for questioning this morning. Questioning about what? About Harrison? About Harrison. I took a big breath. Emily, Harrison wasn't Julian's nephew. He was Julian's business partner. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Of course he was. Of course, honey. No, it makes perfect sense. I should have seen it. She put her head in her hands. 3 years. I was with him for 3 years, and he was planning to steal from my own father. We don't know how long he was planning it. Yes, we do. Remember when we first started dating and you mentioned that you owned your house free and clear? Harrison was so interested in that. Asked all sorts of questions about property values and equity loans. Emily, he was sizing you up from the beginning, figuring out how much he could steal. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Harrison.
What does it say? I asked. Emily read it aloud. Airport. Flight leaves in 2 hours. Last chance to come with me. Everything we planned is still possible. He's running. Good. I hope he keeps running forever. But Emily's hands were shaking as she typed her response. Where are you? Harrison's reply came immediately. Concourse B, Gate 23, waiting for you. Emily looked at me. Dad, I want to see him one more time. Emily, that's not safe. I'll be safe, you'll be with me, and the FBI will be there too, right? I called Agent Davies. My daughter wants to confront Harrison at the airport. We can arrange that. We've been monitoring his credit cards. He bought a ticket to Costa Rica, non-extradition country. If your daughter can keep him talking until we get in position, we can arrest him before he boards. And Emily, your daughter will be wearing a wire. She'll be completely protected. 2 hours later, Emily and I stood at the entrance to Concourse B while FBI agents positioned themselves throughout the terminal. Harrison was sitting at Gate 23, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses like he was in a spy movie. When he saw Emily approaching, he stood up and smiled. I knew you'd come, he said. Did you? Of course, we belong together, Emily. Despite what your father thinks, despite all the complications, we're meant to be partners. Partners, Emily let the word hang in the air. Is that what you and Julian were? Partners? Harrison's smile faltered slightly. Julian was a family friend who helped us with financial arrangements. Financial arrangements involving 7 different families? I don't know what you're talking about. The FBI arrested Julian this morning. He had records of 43 homeowners you've been stealing from. Harrison glanced around the terminal nervously. Julian exaggerated his business activities. He liked to seem more important than he was. And you? How important are you, Harrison? Important enough to take care of you and our baby. Our baby? Emily's voice was deadly quiet. Of course, I meant what I said yesterday. The pregnancy complicates things, but we can work around it. Work around it? Like you worked around stealing my father's house? I never stole anything from your father. The mortgage was legitimate. Signed by an imposter you hired? Signed by a business associate acting on your father's behalf. Emily stepped closer. Harrison, I need you to tell me something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Anything. When did you first decide to steal from my father? Harrison's face went white. Emily, you're wearing a wire. Yes, I am. Why would you do that? Because I want everyone to hear what kind of man I almost married. Harrison backed toward the gate, but FBI agents were already moving in from both directions. Harrison, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. I'm protecting my family. I am your family. No, Emily said. You're just a con man who picked the wrong mark. Agent Davies appeared behind Harrison and cuffed him while he was still looking at Emily with disbelief. Harrison Sterling, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit mortgage fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. As they led him away, Harrison shouted back at Emily, You'll never find anyone else who will take you, not with your history, not with a baby.
Emily watched until he disappeared around the corner, then turned to me. Dad, I'm ready to go home now. But home was about to become something very different than either of us expected. 6 weeks later, Emily moved into the guest bedroom at 1247 Maple Street. Technically, it wasn't my house anymore. The charitable trust meant it belonged to St. Vincent's Foundation, but the terms of the trust guaranteed I could live there for the rest of my life. And as a bonus, the foundation allowed family members to stay as well. Dad, Emily said one evening as we sat in the living room, I need to tell you something about the baby. What about the baby? I lied to Harrison about when I got pregnant. I set down my coffee mug. What do you mean? I told him I was 8 weeks along, but I'm actually 12 weeks. I found out about the pregnancy before Julian approached me about the mortgage. Why did you lie? Because when I first found out, I was excited. I thought Harrison would be excited too. But when I told him, he said we needed to wait until after the wedding to start a family. Said a pregnancy would interfere with his family's plans. Their plans to steal from other people. I didn't know that then. I just knew that the man I thought loved me was disappointed about our baby. She put her hand on her stomach. So, when everything fell apart, when I found out what he really was, I decided to give him one last chance to do the right thing by telling him you were pregnant. Well, implying the timing was accidental. By giving him the opportunity to choose his child over his criminal enterprise, and he chose the criminal enterprise. He chose himself, like he always did. I reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you for protecting your child from a con man, and for protecting me even when you thought you were helping Harrison. Emily wiped her eyes. Dad, there's something else. Agent Davies called today. The FBI recovered most of the money from Julian's other victims. They're establishing a restitution fund. What does that mean?
It means we might get back some of the $160,000 they stole from your house. Might? Julian spent a lot of it, but they found bank accounts in 3 different countries. The government is working with international authorities to freeze the assets. And Harrison's going to trial next month. His attorney is recommending he take a plea deal. How do you feel about that? Emily thought for a moment. I feel like justice is being served, but I also feel like I dodged the biggest bullet of my life. Because you found out what he was before you married him? Because I found out what kind of father he would have been. She looked around the living room, at the family photos on the mantle, at the books on the shelves, at all the evidence of a life built on honest work and genuine love. This baby is going to grow up knowing what integrity looks like. This baby is going to grow up spoiled rotten by its grandfather. Emily laughed. Dad, I have a proposal for you. What's that? St. Vincent's Foundation runs after-school tutoring programs, right? And they're always looking for qualified teachers. Where are you going with this? What if we turned this house into a tutoring center? You could teach kids about history, about critical thinking, about how to spot people who want to take advantage of them. And I could teach financial literacy, show people how to protect themselves from mortgage fraud, how to recognize scams, how to build real wealth instead of falling for get-rich-quick schemes. It wouldn't just be about math or history anymore. It would be about survival in a world that often values appearance over substance. You want to work together? I want to build something good out of something bad, turn our worst experience into a way to help other families. I looked around the house where Sarah and I had raised Emily, where we'd built our life together, where Emily would now raise her own child. I think your mother would love that idea, I said. Dad? Yeah. When the baby comes, will you teach them about mom every day? And will you teach them about forgiveness? I'll teach them about boundaries first. Forgiveness comes later, when people earn it. Emily nodded. Good, because this baby needs to know the difference. 3 months later, I got a letter from Harrison in federal prison asking if Emily would bring the baby to visit him when it was born. I threw the letter away without showing it to Emily. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. The Bennett Family Learning Center opened on a Saturday morning in March, 6 weeks after Emily gave birth to Lily Rose Bennett.
The baby slept in a carrier next to Emily's desk while she explained debt-to-income ratios to a group of first-time homebuyers. I was in the living room with 8 middle school students teaching them about the Great Depression and why understanding history helps you recognize patterns in the present. "Mr. Bennett," asked a 12-year-old named Marcus, "how do you know when someone is lying to you about money?" "You ask questions," I said. "If someone claims they can double your money overnight, you ask them to explain exactly how. If they can't give you a clear answer, they're lying. What if they get mad at you for asking questions? Then you know for sure they're lying. Honest people don't mind explaining their work." After the students left, Emily and I sat in the kitchen sharing a late lunch while Lily slept upstairs. "Dad, I got a call from Agent Davies today." "Good news?" "Julian pleaded guilty to all charges. He's going to prison for 12 years. Harrison got 8 years for his cooperation." "How do you feel about that?" "I feel like justice was served, and I feel grateful that Lily will never have to meet either of them." I looked at the photo on the refrigerator, Emily holding Lily in the hospital, both of them healthy and safe and surrounded by people who actually loved them. "Emily, do you ever regret how everything turned out?" "You mean, do I regret not marrying a con man who would have taught my daughter that love means letting people steal from you?" I guess that answers my question. Dad, I learned something important from all this. The people who truly care about you don't ask you to choose between them and your integrity. They don't ask you to betray your family for their benefit, and they don't disappear when things get difficult. They stick around and help you build something better. Exactly. Lily started crying upstairs. Emily started to get up, but I waved her back down. "I've got her. Grandpa duty calls." As I headed upstairs to get my granddaughter, I thought about everything we'd lost and everything we'd gained. The house officially belonged to a charity now, but it felt like home than it ever had. Emily was single, but she was stronger than she'd ever been. I was 62 years old, but I was building a legacy that mattered. Sometimes the best revenge against people who try to destroy your family is simply refusing to let them succeed. If you've ever had to choose between love and respect, subscribe to this channel and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Let me know in the comments where you're listening and what boundaries you've had to set in your own life, because sometimes saying no to the people you love is the most loving thing you can do.